Hey everybody, it's Casual Boops coming at you with another video, and today we're going to be covering the Strv 103B, the flattest tank in the game. It is the tier 10 Swedish tank destroyer in World of Tanks on the tech tree, and I have covered this tank before, so if I'm gonna post it on this side or that side, whatever. You'll see there's a link to that video that came out maybe a year or two ago or something like that. Anyways, and a little bit different take on it for this one, so it's you can watch that one, and I guess if you like that, that's fine. I guess basically the reason I'm covering it now is because I frequently do not like the style of these tanks, which is usually to sit at the back of the map or on the red line or as far away from the enemy as you possibly can get, and then farm as your team loses, hopefully, right? That's really what needs to happen. In order for you to have a really good game, it's hard to be aggressive in this tank because it's just because of the way it is. And so usually what you need to do is set up and take shots as the enemy runs into your gun. And it's very hard to be aggressive, and so your team needs to lose, but not lose too quickly. And so it's very difficult to consistently have a good game. And it's just gameplay that I typically find kind of boring, and it's hard to commentate over because it's a lot of sitting and waiting. And it's probably the same reason you'll never see a lot of scout games in on this channel, because frankly, a lot of the best scout games that aren't EBRs going are sitting in a bush when there's nothing wrong with that gameplay wise. It's just boring as hell to watch. Ditto for all of the Strv tanks. They're fine tanks. They're kind of slow for me. So anyways, it is on track now. The entire line is on track. So if you find yourself wanting to get the Strv tanks, I will say they are the quintessential tank destroyer in World of Tanks. They're great for missions. Missions will just sort of happen when you play this line, because there are two types of tank destroyers in the game. There's sneaky ones that sit in bushes and plink things without being spotted and pen their shots, and that's what this entire line does. And then there's the heavy tank support, like support heavy tank, like it's really a heavy tank in disguise, like a T110E3, that are in your face, and they've got the armor, and they're gonna do it. Those are the two types of tank destroyers in the game. But World of Tanks, the wargaming developers, for the missions, for the 279E and the 260 and all that stuff, they just sort of ignore the fact that the second one exists. So all the missions are talking about penning your shots and don't get spotted and blah, 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 blah. And so if you want those missions done, just play this Strv line, and the premium is just like the line, the STRV S1, and eventually these missions will just happen, because that is exactly what wargaming wants you to do in these tanks. And so if you're doing it, I mean, you'll either explode a lot and die, but if you ever don't, then you will complete these missions very quickly. So, yeah, let's get into the stats. Okay, so we're going to go fast about the stats here, because this tank has been in the game for a while, and I've already covered it in another video, but the gist of it is it's got a 390 alpha gun with really good penetration on standard rounds, and that's another nice thing about these tanks, is they don't need premium rounds much. You don't need to shoot a lot of premium rounds usually, because the standard penetration is freaking awesome, and the accuracy is usually really good, and so you can usually hit the shots that you want, and they usually pen. You don't usually need a lot of premium spam. The alpha's just okay, right? 390 is really nothing to write home about it, tier 10. But it's got really good DPM. That's its whole shtick, is that the DPM is crazy, and the penetration is good, and the accuracy is good, and that's what it is. There are two modes, right? These tanks are kind of awkward to play because they've got a siege mode where right now we're in travel mode, where it runs around and it has almost no gun depression, no elevation, no nothing. And it's just, this is your movement mode. And then you click the siege mode and it stops moving for like 2 seconds, and then all of a sudden you are in siege mode and your gun is a freaking laser beam. Especially the tier 10. The 8 and the 9, the gun is not quite as good, obviously, but the 10 is like a laser pointer. It's always aimed in, all the time, always. And so, but that's really awesome. But you also move very, very slowly, and so that's one of the reasons why the equipment choices I'm going to recommend to you are what they are. But it's all about DPM, and it's all about penning your shots. And so like I said, the 390 average damage is just okay, right? And it's got really good pen. The accuracy is good, right? The base accuracy of 0.29 is very good. What other things are there to note? The three-man crew, the crew layouts of this line are kind of haphazard and all over the place until you get to tier 8. From tier 8 and the 9 and the 10 are all the same. It's the same three-man crew as I think all the other Swedish higher tier, like 8, 9s, and 10s. I think they all have the same 3-man crew. So it's worthwhile if you have some female crew or whatever, to like train, like play the entire Swedish tech tree line, all of the lines up to tier 8, because that's where the crew layouts kind of like, you won't need to like have a random extra radio operator, or I guess you need a radio operator, whatever. You'll have like a spare driver from playing the things. You can convert that using gold, but I would play all of the tanks up to 8, and then from there the crew stabilizes, and you can plan out which tanks you want to have which crews in and stuff. It's a little bit easier. Otherwise you'll end up with spares at the end. It's very annoying. So, the camo is also very good. That's one of the defining factors of the tank, is that the camo is great, and so on and so forth. So, if you tap the siege mode button, your accuracy goes to god tier amazing, your speed goes awful, and your traverse is, like I said, laser beam. It just can't get any better. And this is why, like the crew skill, smooth ride and like snapshot, they have no effect on this tank at all, because this is just incredible. It doesn't matter what you do. So this is that. Yeah, it's a little bit of a weird tank, right? So let's, yeah, so that's the stat. Those are the things about it, and I'll talk about equipment and things like that in just a second. But armor, it's weird. It's a weird flat tank. It looks like a wedge. It's almost like it's like a turret on tracks, right? That's the way they designed it. And you'll want to know, if you don't understand why this armor is so good but also so bad at the same time, you'll want to watch my video, my Get Good video on overmatching and how that all works. And that is in, that'll probably pop up on your screen one side or the other pretty soon. I'll do that right now too. But basically the armor on this thing can work very well depending on what is shooting at you, because it has 50 millimeters almost everywhere, except for there's little pockets of bits that are 10 millimeters thicker, right? So there's some 60 and some 50. It has 50 millimeters of sloped armor almost everywhere in the front. And if you're using the tank very well, you'll be cresting a ridge or using bushes and stuff. And so that's is all you'll see. And so most tanks that are not able to triple overmatch the 50 millimeters of armor will they will just bounce all the time. You like, I'm picking a 60 TP to demonstrate how effective the tank can be against something that's bigger, right? This is a 152, which means it does overmatch everywhere except these little bits, right? Yada yada yada, overmatching. So if it's against something that's like something American, those guys don't have, American tanks don't usually have giant caliber guns. So like an E5. An E5 can just fuck off. And it has a fence. Tank has a fence on it. And so because it has a fence, it has a heat shield. So normally with the tier 9 and stuff, it has very similar armor, but it doesn't have this heat shield. So you would tap 2 and you'd shoot your heat rounds, and heat doesn't care about angles. And so it's going to pen anyways. Well, the tier 10 has fixed that problem. They've got fences. And so because of that, if you shoot heat at the fences, you're not going to go in. It makes it very hard to play against, because if you have a gun like the E5, your options are to hit this cupola, tiny cupola, to hit it on the side armor, right? Because the tank is a lot narrower than it looks like it is. And so, and the side armor is only 30 millimeters thick. So you can overmatch the side very, very easily, but it's hard to hit. The tank, like if he's looking right at you, there's nothing you can do. But if they're looking off to the side in some way, then you can do that, or you just fuck off. That's just the answer, because you've got heat rounds, and this tank doesn't care about heat rounds. The heat rounds will work against the lower plate, but if you're playing this tank correctly and you're hull down over a ridge, you don't get a lower plate. So again, you just fuck off, and there's nothing you can do. You can't make your barrel bigger. You can't increase the caliber of your gun. So I think this is really shitty game design, honestly, because certain tanks have a way harder time against the Strv, and there's nothing that you can do to fix that. So the armor works really well against lower caliber guns, and so it's going to take you, if you're playing this tank, it will behoove you to at least have an inkling of which nations, which tanks have which kind of bigger guns. And the answer there is, of course, the Chinese and the Soviet tanks usually have big stupid guns. That the French heavy tank has a big stupid gun. There's a few tanks that have big guns, and those will usually overmatch your armor. The T110 E4s and 3s have 155s and stuff, and those will overmatch, so knowing which tanks are shooting at you helps a lot, right? And so if you don't know that, then you'll be surprised. And so that's basically it. So it works really well against things like that have smaller guns, but it works really, really terribly against things that have big guns. So that's how the armor works. And I'll switch back to the things here. So when you are in, okay, so we're going to talk about equipment and field mods now. So equipment is actually, we're going to talk about field mods first. Field mods, always this one, and especially with this tank in the shooting mode. This is insanity. So you always want this one always, just because it's straight up better. This one gives you smaller aiming circle in exchange for aiming speed. Well, especially in this particular case with an aiming speed that is already stupid and soft stats that are already stupid, this is the dumbest balancing decision ever. Why would they do this? This is always the right answer because this means nothing. There is no aiming time for this. So this is always, the parallax adjustment is always the right choice. Right angle periscope is always the right choice. Something's bugged here. It keeps turning off my siege mode when I pick a thing. I would probably pick a scouting slot for an alternate loadout, right? But it doesn't really matter. This one, I am always these sniper tank destroyers and sniper medium tanks that are tier 9 and up have the access to this field mod, which gives you aiming circle size, which is overpowered and broken. I am always picking the one that is a smaller aiming circle size because that's basically like a free improved aiming mechanism. That's just stupid. This shouldn't be as good as it is, and so here we are. So I will always pick this one, and then especially again for this one where aiming speed doesn't matter in this tank because the aiming speed is incredible. There is no aiming time, so easily you're going for the field for the engine power, and so that's just a straight upgrade. And so these are the field mods that you should always pick, and the equipment. This one's a little bit. I will say that I am a little bit unorthodox in my equipment choices because I am grinding through it now and I don't have all of the field mods on it. I don't have these, I think. Because of that, when I shoot, a lot of times you're playing at longer ranges, and I found myself to be very annoyed at the accuracy. And I understand that .22 is really good, but when all your shots are at 500 meters, I found it to be, I needed to hit lower plates of things at 500 meters to hit the things, and it just wasn't doing it for me. So personally, until at least while I'm grinding, I picked this, the improved aiming in the improved slot, and the tank hits exactly what I want. It hits cupolas all day, yada yada yada. And then the second one will always be a turbocharger. Right, it helps a lot because your speed in travel mode is already really good, right? And you've got power to weight of 22, which is good. But the biggest thing, why would you pick this, is that when you're in siege mode, it takes this from 10 to 14 top speed forward, and from 10 to 12 top speed in reverse. So it makes it so that you can crest and move around while you're in siege mode a lot easier. That's a 40% bump. That is massive. Massive, massive, massive. Always have a turbo on your Strv. In fact, if you can get a pink turbo or a purple turbo, this is a really, if you like the tanks enough to put it on there and justify it, this is a really good way to do it because, again, going from 10 to 15 in siege mode is a game-changing difference. That's just huge. And then this one is debatable. If you have a very good crew, you could probably get away with optics. Personally, I run binoculars because even though my crew is decent, if you have, because of the way the tank plays, oftentimes with the camo that it has, which is pretty good, right? The stationary camo especially is excellent. If you are using a bush as cover and you have binoculars, because of the camouflage that this tank gets, you will outspot light tanks. Light tanks will have a very, very hard time approaching you and spotting you before you spot them. So for that reason, I run binoculars. It does make it harder to be aggressive. And in fact, that's part of the reason I would say to, one of the things is, obviously you want to put it in this slot so that if you have the binoculars, they're even better binoculars. We do it like that. Come on, there we go. So after I have the field mods, like this, then I will probably take this off and put a rammer on. And I know there are people right now that are saying, Boobs, what are you doing? Why do you not have a rammer? I know. It's against my religion to normally not run a rammer on things like this already, but I had like 3 games in a row one time where I just could not hit the fucking shots. I couldn't hit the things I wanted to hit, and I was like, all right, I don't really care how fast I shoot if I don't pen the shots that I'm taking. So I swapped it out, and I don't really feel bad about it. But again, once the field mods are done, I will probably swap back to a rammer, because then, 0.21 is really good. That's basically where I was at before. So I'm down with this. I wasn't down with it before, and I was having a really bad time. So this is the equipment I would recommend on an everyday loadout, or all the time. I suppose you could probably have something where maybe if it's like a city or something like that, you could swap out the binoculars for like vents to really maximize the DPM or something like that. I don't really know. This tank is a one-trick pony, right? It likes to be, well, you're about to see. It's mostly a one-trick pony. It likes to do one thing, and so it's kind of hard to shoehorn it into another role. So it's not really worth talking about usually, like, what do you do in a situation that's not ideal? Well, the answer is usually you die. So I don't usually like playing this tank a lot because I like things that are a little more flexible, but man, it does hit what you aim at as long as you do it like this. So without further ado, we'll get into the gameplay. Alright, so we're going to start off watching me playing in my Strv, and we're on, what is this, Pearl River, which is a garbage map, in my opinion, and I never go to the 1-2-3 line because it's just such a shit show. It's hard to push, and there's just nowhere to, it's just not very good, and there's nowhere to, tank destroyers have a really hard time of being effective, in my opinion. If there's some other way to play that, let me know. But usually what happens when I go to the 1-2 line on either spawn is I sit in a spot and then do nothing. So instead, I'm going to go to the heavy tank area, and this is a tier 10 game, of course, with tier 8s in it. There's no artillery, so I'm like, alright, right away I'm looking at the team list, and I'm like, which of these tanks on the enemy team has a gun that's big enough that I need to worry about it, right? And so the Jaegeru is one, a couple of those Soviet tanks are one, the T-30 is one, but whatever. We're gonna try to be aggressive, right? Because just by having a Strv in certain areas, you represent a problem. And so right away we're gonna put the shot into the 705A or the 705 and not let him get there for free. And I crested this hill a little bit too far, and I paid for it, right? T-30 has a 155mm gun. He doesn't need to care about my armor, so I need to respect his gun a lot more than that in the future. What is that? IS-3-2 doesn't have a good enough anything. His turret or his gun isn't very good, and or not big enough anyways. The Jaegeru shot heat, and normally Jaegeru heat does everything you want it to do, right? Except I have a fence, and the Jaegeru heat hit my fence. So I don't need to care about the Jaegeru. As long as he keeps shooting heat at me, my fence is going to keep eating the heat. But if he does load AP rounds, then I need to just make sure that he can't hit me because I'm a very small target. That's like with this T-30. I'm aggressive. I'm in people's faces, and I want to take this shot and oh man, another heat round, and this one again hit my barrel, but also the fence. And that was just bad shooting. Just bad shooting. I didn't want to expose myself too much, because the two ways that I'm using to stay alive are using this hill and poking up and not giving my enemies very long to shoot at me, and also by that's basically it. Just not giving my enemies very much time, much to shoot at, and I'm not sitting there waiting for them to hit. And I'll take the easy damage in the prototype, sure, okay. And now I see the Jaegeru is basically pre-aiming. He looks like he's aiming right now, and so I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna wait, and he'll get bored eventually. So I'm gonna sit back here, and I notice that we have an ML2, an AE Phase 1, and a 705 that are all just sitting there facing off against one enemy 705 that's side-scraping, and it's like, dude, I need you guys to see that there are 3 versus 1. And I've got the rest of the team locked down. I need you to go do something, please. And so I'm in siege mode and I'm moving, and that's... I probably should have seen that one coming. AP rounds, the Jaegeru switched to AP rounds. But again, he did that, and now I've got 7 hit points, and he's going to die, though, right? So now I'm going to use my DPM, and he dies. I shot him 6 times, took all of his hit points, and now he's dead. So just area denial is what I just did there. I didn't let those guys advance, and if my team was worth a shit, then they would have pushed that 705A, we would have been done with this game by now. But here we are. We've just been able to plug away shots and keep people from engaging too much, and so we're at 4,700 damage, by the way, and it's racking up, and so now we're just going to sit and wait, because I'm figuring my only damage is going to come from either this IS-32 or this 50 prototype, and I was just a hair too slow. And we have won this flank, but we've lost just about everywhere else, because the 1-2-3 line is a shit show, and our T-103 is in a place that's not good, but he doesn't even realize that, apparently. Because the enemy team has the middle, right? That middle is this map is a lot like mines. Once you have that middle, you have a lot of map control in other areas of the map. And I see this bat chat. Oh my god, I'm gonna go. Turn. Oh, and we just miss him by just like a quarter of a second. And this is what I mean about it's just hard sometimes to be where you need to be because of the setup time and everything else. It just is part of being in the Strv tanks, because the setup time that is required to get yourself into and out of siege mode, it just it kind of constrains you, right? So this is why it's hard to be aggressive. Obviously, we did that just now pretty well. Did the aggressive thing, but you know, Jaegeru did slap us once, and so did a T-30. So I think honestly, the T-30 was on me. I misplayed the T-30, and then I just I guess I misplayed the Jaegeru thing too. But you know, if I wouldn't have misplayed the T-30, I would have still taken the Jaegeru hit just to keep the momentum, right? I would have had the hit points to just go do that. But anyways, it is 6-3, and it was looking really good for a second, then it was looking not so great, and now we should be good, right? It's 6-3, but also I'm almost dead, and I don't have any faith in my teammates' abilities to do anything. I almost killed myself off this cliff, because I'm just looking at how these guys have behaved, right? The 705 is not doing things well. The AE and the ML2, they came around this way, and just, I don't know. I'm just getting the sense that these guys aren't doing it well, right? And the T110E5 is off by himself somehow, and I don't have any faith in anyone's ability to do anything right ever. So we're gonna get in there. We're gonna get in there and try to make sure that these guys don't throw it. And as soon as I figured out that the Strv wasn't sitting at, you know, F2, I'm gonna use some bushes and try to make sure I don't get shot on the way in. And I'm gonna put myself in there, because the WZ has a pretty big gun. The Roomba might have the big gun, but it's just not worth. I just need to get in there and surprise people, because I'm still. As long as you position properly, even a low hit point Strv can still cause a big problem. So these guys are in the process of throwing, because they've put themselves in a nice little crossfire, and kudos to the enemy team for setting up that crossfire where the Strv is shooting things, and when this E5 decides to throw his whole tank away and shoot the Strv, it doesn't go very well. And you can see again the E5s have a hard time with Strvs, because he had to throw his whole face in to fix it. And so we're gonna get in, take out the Strv. And now again, I'm just in that magical spot where I'm hull down. Now, unfortunately, the guys that were here with me are dead, and that's a full health WZ, so I'm probably not winning this little engagement, but I will take him down to a one-shot. That's 2 more shots, and maybe he'll give me another shot. No, he won't. And again, this is why it's hard to be aggressive, is because all he would have had to do is jam me up, and it would have been hard to hit that shot. So he ran me to death, and that's fine. But I took him down to a one-shot, and I'm hoping... You'll see here in the chat where I said if you guys, where is it? If you throw this, I'll never forgive you. Yeah, because it's 3 tier 9s on healthy numbers of hit points against 2 tier 8s that are almost one shot. So, anyways, we'll see how it goes. All right, so at the end of the game, those guys ended up cleaning up the win. Thank God. It was not as easy as you would have thought. Those guys tried their very hardest to throw it, but we ended up taking them the win. And it's 3 kills, 5,800 damage, 2,400 blocked. That was a first class only, probably just because of the, you know, we did shoot some of the lower tier tanks, some tier 8s and 7s, or sorry, 8s and 9s and stuff. We did get a high caliber, and we got that tank sniper, I think, for just penning a bunch of our shots in a row, because that's what these tanks are good at. That was 1,026 base XP, because again, we were shooting lower tiers. And at the end of the game there, we ended up taking home 13,000 credits, Gosh, that's not very much, but you know, I did shoot a few premium rounds, and you know, again, shooting lower tiers. It is what it is. It's tier 10. It's really, really hard to make money at tier 10, but I didn't need to spam gold, which is a huge step up. So that is the game, and I hope this is you know, shows you guys how you can play a Strv not on the red line, right? This obviously was pretty effective, and you have to know what you're doing. And you know, if somebody was better at the game than me, they probably could have done it even better than me. I made a few mistakes, but you don't need to play a Strv on the red line. If you play it right, you can play it up in somebody's face, and you can really make an impact on the game. I don't know that I would have had as good of a game if I had tried to do this any other way, just because it's so situational any other way. So that's it for me. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one. All right.